The day before we were boarded, 2 jets flew overhead from the RAF. You just need to look at the front of this demonstration to see why I now call the RAF the pram busters, not the dam busters. They have brought great shame on our country, and they could have stood up and disobeyed orders. They could have done that, but they didn't. I've also got something else to tell you. We're blessed we live in Scotland, but Britain is now part of Tel Aviv. The passport I carried to get me through different countries says let the bearer, as a member, as someone protected by the British government, let the bearer through. I didn't have that protection. I was told by my Tory MP, John Lamont, that I did not have the protection of the British government. But we boo when we mention the Tories, but what about the Tory lights in number 10 at the moment? Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper. The one before Yvette Cooper, David Lammy, said, I always remember him for this, he said, Israel is our ally. We have shared values. That's what he said. We have shared values with Israel. I've spent 5 days in prison under the Israelis, and what those shared values are, I have no idea. These people are so damaged and so malicious and so hateful. They did everything they could to make our lives a misery. They took our medicines from us. They strip-searched me in public. And Ben Gavir came strutting in to the area where we were all being held. And I went running forward and said, from the river to the sea. I wish you'd been with me because I couldn't finish off the Palestine will be free. I was jumped on by 5 big Israelis by the throat, one to shut my mouth, another pegged my nose. They were disgraceful. My travelling companion, Max, Margaret, she's out there somewhere. I love you so much, Margaret. She had her legs broken in 4 places and, she was still determined to make this journey and she was doing fine. And when they saw that she had this fragile leg, they slammed the prison door against her. These people are cruel and devoid of any emotion. As they processed us, I'm looking, they're searching our clothes, and they went through the lining of our jackets, the lining of our trousers, and I remembered reading that this is exactly what the Nazis did in the Holocaust, when people were queuing and being processed through Belsen and Auschwitz. They were doing exactly the same. The grandchildren of the Holocaust, they were doing that to us. No compassion at all, nothing. They showed themselves for what they are. And yet despite that, despite all of that, they will mention the Holocaust as though they are the victims. The abused have become the abusers.
This is very Glaswegian, and Glasgow should be proud of every single one of you who's joined here today to demand justice for Palestine. We've done so on so many occasions and expressed our anger and revulsion at the events we've been witnessing. There's another feeling I've been having this week, and I'm not sure I have a word for it. It's the feeling I've had when I've heard the voices of Palestinians who are now moving north again and saying they want to return to their homes. And I want them to feel that hope. They deserve to have that hope. But we all know that so many of them will return not to homes but to rubble, to entire communities erased. Because that is the genocidal intent of the Israeli government over the last 2 years, is to eradicate the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, and the very land and communities that they have built and struggled in and lived in. And the scenes that they witness when they return will stand as a testament to that genocidal intent. I know there is nobody here, not one person here, who takes seriously the revolting hypocrisy of Donald Trump in trying to claim credit for a moment of peace or of hope. Donald Trump, who has emboldened and armed the Israeli regime for so long. And there is no one here who will take seriously the claims of Benjamin Netanyahu suddenly now to want peace. Benjamin Netanyahu, whose career has been built on lies, on hatred, and on the intention to commit genocide. And we know that one day he will be held accountable. He will stand trial for his war crimes, and every UK minister and Prime Minister who has ever uttered the words, "We stand with Israel," they should stand alongside him in the dock. But however much revulsion, however much cynicism we have about the words of people like Trump and Netanyahu in this moment, let's be very clear. They and their supporters and a great deal of the global media are about to start bombarding the world with new lies that say that this moment is one that settles a 2-year-long war. This has not been a 2-year-long war. War is not the same as genocide, and the injustice that we've seen is not 2 years long, it is not 2 decades long, it is generations long. It is more than 50 years since the United Nations voted to say that the people of Palestine deserve sovereignty, independence and security, and that is the longest running injustice that the world has allowed the Palestinian people to endure without those promises being delivered. So we need to be clear that this is not peace until there is justice, and that means an independent and secure Palestine acting for itself on the world stage. Now, you may know that recently the Scottish Parliament finally, long overdue, voted for a call for boycotts, divestment and sanctions against the state of Israel and companies that are complicit in the genocide. But in the face of the lies that are about to be told about the agreement that has now been reached, whether we trust it or not, we know that there will be many people who say that is no longer necessary. Well, we need to redouble the campaign, because boycotts, divestment and sanctions remain one of the most powerful weapons we can have to secure meaningful justice for Palestine. Yesterday, I wrote to the First Minister to remind him that the events of this week do not end the need to give effect to boycotts, divestment and sanctions. You can do the same. Whatever part of Scotland you come from, you can call on your local council to review and end any contracts they have with complicit companies, and on the Scottish Government to do the same. And I know, and John Swinney knows, that many of his own party members want and demand a more robust stance from the Scottish Government to end contracts with complicit companies, to make sure that we invest nothing, not a single penny, in companies that are complicit with genocide, and that we continue to demand not only the end of the current atrocities, but security, peace and justice for Palestine, and for every war criminal to face the war crimes trial they deserve. We won't rest until that happens.
Yeah, I'm 1/5 of the Leonardo 5, and last December we blocked the gates to that disgusting factory that is the shame of our capital city. For those of you who don't know, Leonardo produces the components for the fighter jets that have been used to devastate Gaza during this genocide. And we've been charged with obstructing police officers, threatening and abusive behaviour, vandalism, and with the added aggravation of hate crime. The perversity of that aversion is not lost on us, as we wanted to stop the most racist crime known to humanity of genocide. So last week at Butte House, we stood outside the First Minister's, myself and others who faced criminalisation for taking action against genocide. And one of the things that the police officers said to me that day was, think about your record. You've got a clean record, think about that, what it means for your future. And my answer then, and my answer remains, think about your record of what you did and what you did not do as children were starved to death. And I look forward to pleading not guilty to all charges at the end of January. After last week, I was approached by a producer from the BBC who asked if I would take part in a podcast called Stopcast to talk about the action. And he said to me, you seem like a normal person. How did you end up here? So I told him. And it wasn't from watching the BBC, I'll tell you that much. I ended up there because I sat beside someone on a bus going down to Bolton many years ago to protest against the BNP. I ended up there because I joined anti-racist organisations and people taught me about Palestine. And I ended up there because I watched with my own eyes in 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2016, the Great March of Return, all of it. I watched as Israel attacked again and again and again, with complete impunity and support from our government. 2014 in particular, who could forget the Abu Bakr boys? 4 little boys playing football on the beach, targeted by one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world, all from the same family, all gone forever. And it was that year that I went to Palestine, and I lived there for a year. And I come to understand what it means for the people there to live and grow up under the absolute horror of occupation. And make no mistake, Israel has had a policy of taking Palestinian hostages, including children, for decades. And those hostages are put in handcuffs that say made in England. And I'm expected to feel ashamed when they call me un-British. I have never been prouder to be called un-British.
Thanks very much, Mick, and it's so wonderful to see so many of you here today. I know you've marched and marched and marched again over the 2 years, and for many of you, you've been marching for Free Palestine for years and decades. And I think I'll say a few words, but the one message I want to leave you with is that this works. This pressure works on politicians, and it works across broader society, and it does make a difference. So please keep up this pressure in whatever way you can. We've now got a ceasefire. Let's see what happens. Those of you who have been watching this for a long time know that the Israeli regime's record when it comes to sticking to ceasefires is absolutely atrocious. And you only need to remember back, as I do, back to Flotilla in 1982. There's been so many examples since then. The Israeli government's gone out of its way to deliberately break ceasefires. But let's see what happens. We've seen the scenes of the Palestinian people in Gaza walking back to their homes to find them destroyed, bombed, annihilated, wiped out. 67,000 people died, slaughtered in Palestine at least. I've no doubt, sadly, that number will continue to grow as more bodies are found underneath the rubble. The road back for the people of Gaza is a long one, and we need to do everything we can to keep that international pressure on, keep that political pressure on, and do everything we can to support them to build that independent Palestinian state.
Hello, our friends, my friends. What a beautiful sight it is to see all of you here today. And what an honor to be among you. Thank you for inviting me to speak here in Glasgow, a city that has long stood in the right side of history. And I am speaking to you today, 24 hours after the announcement of a ceasefire in Gaza. At long last, we have a reprieve, a sigh of relief from these 2 evil years, merciless, inhumane bombing and starvation and ethnic cleansing of our people. This ceasefire would have not happened without the resilience and the strength of the Palestinian people. My people in Gaza, in Jerusalem, in Jenin, in Nablus, in Al-Khadim, have defeated genocide, have defeated annihilation, have defeated extermination, have defeated racism. destroy